We'll call this meeting of our board meeting of January 25th to order at this time, and we'll stand for O Canada and our land acknowledgement.
The land upon which we work, live, and sustain ourselves is the ancestral and treaty lands of the Michizagig Anishinaabe, also known today as the Mississaugas of the Credit, the rightful caretakers and title holders of this land. We also recognize the rich pre-contact history and relationships which include the Anishinaabe and the Ongwe Hongwe.
Since European contact, this land continues to be home to Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. As responsible community members, we value the diversity, dignity, and worth of all people.
Colonialism displaced and dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their ancestral land
and continues to deny their basic human rights, dignities, and freedoms.
We are committed to learning true history to reconcile, make reparations, and fulfill our treaty obligations to the original peoples and our collective responsibilities to the land, water, animals, and each other for future generations.
Just before I call for approval of the agenda tonight, I just want to take the time to acknowledge and thank the Minister of Education for returning trustees to their seat and giving trustee back the right to carry out their democratic right as trustees. I also want to take the time to acknowledge and thank Supervisor Bruce Rodriguez for his time that he spent at this board, supervising this board over the last 2.5 years. We thank you for your commitment to the work and to ensure that the board has been progressive and that the ministry directive have been implemented and followed. We also want to thank the staff who has been on the front line working diligently to ensure that our students have been given the tool that they need to succeed in life. To our director tonight, our staff, our senior administration staff that has been carrying out the work and ensuring that the directive have been fully implemented, and not only implemented, but trickled down to the students so that we can see impacts and outcome. So I want to thank you tonight. I want to assure each and every one, including the public tonight, that as a board, as we are back in charge tonight, we want to work with you. We're here to ensure that we are working cohesively, to ensure that the work that we do together, your voice will be heard, your voice will be listened. We will value you. We need you. Without you, there is no us. We're partners, and we look forward to working with you to ensure that this work continue, that together we will continue to dismantle anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, and every form of racism and any injustice that is within our systems. Will continue to work to eliminate those, that making sure that our students that have been marginalized for years have been given the opportunity so that they can succeed in life and become productive citizens in society. So again, we look forward to working alongside you. I know we may not always agree, we may have some disagreement, but at the end of the day, I want us to be respectful to one another. I want us to value each other's voice. I want to make sure that we value each other's opinion and work cohesively to ensure that the Peel District School Board will be the best board in Ontario. Thank you. At this time, I will ask for approval of the agenda. Trustee Alv and Trustee Cameron, all those in favor? Thank you. Trustee Alv, I'm going to ask you to help me monitor for hands when the hands raised. Okay? Yep. Okay, good, thank you. As supervision of the board has been lifted, trustee will be voting on all items and motion as required by the procedures by law. As the board meeting is being conducted using a hybrid model with some trustee attending in person and others attending virtually, we will be conducting vote by calling out if there are any objections. If there are any objection, then we will conduct a vote by calling on each individual trustee in alphabetical order according to last name to cast their vote by answering yea or nay. The vote will then be announced. If there are no objection, then the vote will carry anonymously. A trustee may request a recorded vote for any motion on the floor. If there is a recording vote called for, I will ask trustees in turn in alphabetical order for their vote, and the vote will then be recorded in the minutes. May I have a mover and a seconder and approval of this agenda, which I already do. So I thank you for that, Trustee Halv and Trustee Cameron. Do we have any conflict of interest tonight? I'm looking around and I'm not seeing any. Thank you very much. So we're gonna move right down to I6. Next on the agenda, celebrating the board activities. So item 6.1, Black History Month. In 1979, February was officially declared Black History Month by the City of Toronto, and in 1993 by the Province of Ontario. Both declarations result from successful petition by the Ontarian Black Society. In 1995, the House of Commons declared February as Black History Month in Canada. After Rosemary Sadler, then president of the OBHS, presented the idea to the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine, who introduced the motion to Parliament. In 2008, the first Black Canadian sector, Donald Oliver, introduced the motion to recognize the contribution of Black Canadians in February as Black History Month. The motion was anonymously approved and adopted on March the 4th, 2008. Throughout the month of February, Peelschools will be recognizing Black History Month to learn and deepen their understanding of a rich culture, heritage, and contribution of Blacks in Canada and beyond. In 2021, Canadian census showed that 1.5 million people identify as Black, making up 4.3% of Canada population. In Peel District School Board, according to the 2018 student census, 9.5% of students identify as Black. Black History Months offer the opportunity for Peel students, their family, staff to celebrate and educate future generations about the achievements and contribution of Blacks within and beyond Canada. Our publicly state commitment to anti-racism, anti-oppression ensure that this occur through engaging equitable inclusion online and in-person learning, modified through and culturally relevant programs opportunity. In celebrating a Black History Month, we continue to center student lived experience as well as amplifying the community definition of Black flourishing. We thank you this afternoon and recognize our February as Black History Month. Can I ask Trustee Jill Paminelli, Trustee Davy to move receipt? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And I'm going to move to item 6.2. Next item is school student staff success. And I believe we have a video to be played. Director Saru?
Yes.
Okay, good. Let's sit back and watch.
Today marks an important day of celebration for our school as we celebrate our 100th anniversary kickoff event.
This is an honor for us to celebrate. This is a milestone. This is a journey to celebrate this year. 100th birthday. That doesn't happen, very often.
It's such a pleasure to be here to mark 100 years of McHugh Public School. So this school brings so much of a rich heritage, history, but has moved on to keep pace with the changing world, technology. What do our students need to prepare for the 21st century?
Congratulations to the entire McHugh School community. What a fabulous way to be able to celebrate, to kick off 100 years.
Thank you so much for entrusting your kids in our care, because it's a duty I know as a board we don't take lightly.
So congratulations on this extra special event recognizing the upcoming centennial celebrations of McHugh Public School.
My special thanks are to all of you, but to my students, my team of staff, my custodians. I am blessed to be the principal of McHugh Public School.
Hi, my name is Steve Keelyside, and I'm the coordinating principal of Modern Learning and Library Services for Peel District School Board. During my time as a music teacher and vice principal at David Suzuki Secondary School, I had the wonderful opportunity to cheer for and watch Renee Steenge grow into one of Canada's top speed skaters. I know Renee and her family very well. In school, she worked hard to balance academics with training, and she inspired so many of her peers with her confidence and drive. It was clear why she was awarded David Suzuki's Athlete of the Year 4 consecutive years. Renee is one of those students that quietly succeeds without looking for any outside accolades. She will always be out there, working hard, driving herself to reach her goals. Since she's graduated, she continues to skate circles around the competition. She's 3 semesters away from graduating from McGill University's Civil Engineering program, and she's on a meteoric rise in the world of speed skating. In fact, Renee recently finished 3rd overall at a major event, qualifying her for World Cup 5 and 6 in Germany and the Netherlands, respectively. That's after winning the silver medal in the 3,000-meter relay final at the World Cup Speed Skating Championships in Kazakhstan. Renee truly is the definition of a goal-getter in both her academic and sporting life. I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone in the board when I say we're proud to have played a supporting role in her pursuits, and that we are incredibly proud to count Renee as an alumnus of Peel District School Board.
Thank you. These are amazing video and proud moments for Peel when we can celebrate the success of our students and, celebrating being at McHugh along with the director and my colleague, Kathy McDonald, to see the students in action and what that tune is still ringing, we will come back home. And it was an amazing time. Associate Director Logan was there also. This is what we need to see when we're out in school and about, and we want to make sure that the community are seeing what's taking place in our school and our students is being inspired. So thank you for that video. I'm going to ask at this time Trustee Clark and Trustee Cole to move receipt of this beautiful video. All those in favor? Carry. Thank you. Next on the item, I'm going to move down to 7.1, which is the retirement. And I'm going to turn over at this time to our Vice Chair Cole to acknowledge our retirees.
Thank you, Chair Green. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Our retirees are Catherine Armez, Dawn Bogseth, Linda Cannon, Michelle Cooper, Sandra Meyer, sorry I'm at home, Helen Galantry, Joe Gradicia, Monica Holman, Matthew Kerr, Kathy Langley, Dorita Machado, Pam Miatico, Viola Mavenka, Louisa Mizuko, Tina Morrison, Julie Morton, Daniela Perrott, Pierre Raymond, Dominic Rotolo, Mike Chikongo, Kim Spratt, Carol Thoreau, Doug Tootie, Marianne West, and Kim Wilson. And just on a side note, thank you to all of you who have retired, and we appreciate you, and we thank you for your service.
Thank you, Vice Chair Cole. I'm going to ask Trustee Bailey and Trustee K. McDonald to move receipt of the retirement for me. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Tonight there is no chair announcements. And we have no report from our student trustees. So we're going to move down to item 10. And Trustee K. McDonald is going to bring us an up-to-date and active route to school. Trustee K. McDonald.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I'd just like to share with everyone that Winter Walk Month is in February, and we are going to have a kickoff on February the 1st. throughout the region. I'd like to encourage everyone to go to Peel Region's website for a lot of ideas of how to celebrate, how families and school can celebrate. And it's really important that we continue to encourage our youth and our staff to be active. Not only is it beneficial for the environment, it is amazing for our students' mental health. So it's important to take time outside exercise for your social well-being, and physical activity can do wonders to students as they learn. And I just wanted to share this initiative with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee McDonald. Do we have any questions for Trustee McDonald and her report? I'm not seeing any, so I'm gonna ask Trustee Davy and Trustee Pamanelli to move and second this for me. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. There are no consent agenda item this evening, so we are gonna move down to item 12 on the agenda this afternoon. And that's the minutes from our December 14th meeting. They're here. And I'm gonna have Trustee Av put them on the floor, and Trustee Cameron is gonna second them. And I'm gonna ask if there's any questions or concerns, comments. I'm not seeing any. Okay, so all those in favor? Thank you, carried. Okay, I'm gonna move to item 13 on the agenda. And we have on the agenda tonight for receipt, the Special Ed Advisory Committee meeting of November 9th, Parent Involvement Committee of November 17th, Curriculum Equity and Student Wellbeing of December the 8th, Special Ed Advisory Council of December 13th, and they're all here. And I'm gonna ask Trustee Brad McDonald.
I apologize, David. I missed my opportunity to ask a question about the minutes.
Okay, all right, okay, so I'm gonna have to come back to that. I'll allow, we don't normally come back, but I'll allow you to, yeah.
My apologies.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll come back to that tonight, but normally we don't go back. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna ask Trustee B. McDonald and Trustee Clark to move and receive, move and second these committee minutes for me. Any questions, any concerns? I'm not seeing any. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, all right, so Trustee, you have a question on item 12,
yes.
The minutes of our last meeting.
That's right, as it relates to Directive 18.
Yeah.
Is that better? So as it relates to Directive 18, a follow-up from last meeting, would we be able to ask through you, Chairman, and through you, Director Sarup, for the matrix and metrics used for that, for defining that tool as it relates to books and libraries?
Director Sarup.
Thank you, Trustee Alves, and through you, Chair Green. I will ask Associate Director Paul De Silva to please respond.
Thank you, Director Swarup. And Trustee Alves, if you could politely just repeat the question for me.
Yes, sir. So again, through you, Chairman, and through you, Director Sarup, my question is, as it relates to books being removed from libraries, if staff could please provide the Board of Trustees with the matrix and metrics used to define the tool, which should form as a guideline for whichever books are being removed.
Great. Through you, Chair, if I could respond. The metrics in which the weeding, if it's the weeding process that we're engaging with libraries, there's the metrics is really a training. So essentially what's happening with the majority, well, all of the teacher librarians in Library Commons, they'll be going through a specific set of training so that each librarian is consistent in the way that they approach the weeding system at each and every school. And really the metrics are, you know, a series of questions that they'll be asking around, are the books culturally relevant? Are they still in good shape? Are they relevant in the 21st century? Some of the questions that the participants will be engaging in is looking at the material and determining whether or not that some of the material is racist or not, or outdated, et cetera. I think what we're looking at is providing some ongoing training for all of those individuals to look and review all of the materials in and the resources. And certainly I think if we can provide information about what that training looks like for trustees, I think we could probably craft that in some kind of memo or whatever it may be, or provide you an information session if you want to engage in something like that, that's similar to what the remainder of the teacher librarians are going through.
So again, through you, Chairman, if I could just follow up on that, I suppose my grave concern is coming because of, from reviewing some of these libraries, it seems like some titles are making their way into some libraries and not others, and it stands as a pretty, you know, a red flag to me as, you know, why would some students have access to one thing and not another? And I think there might be, you know, perhaps a flaw with what's equitable here. And I think that maybe I misunderstood, but it sounds like the definition might be subjective to whomever is interpreting whatever training they receive. And I think that might be perhaps problematic as we look to institute this across the PDSP. So I'm not sure how to ask this question. So through you, Chairman, would there be a way for us to have metrics or a matrix defined so that we can guarantee what is removed at one school is removed at another, and perhaps we could participate in that training, Director?
So what I will do, Trustee Alv, at this time, I will pass it over to Director Saru, and then I can, as chair, I can have a further discussion with Director Saru around that, and she can have herself or staff maybe bring a report back to the board.
Thank you, sir.
Director Saru.
Thank you, Chair Green. Thank you for giving us that time to take it back to staff to provide a very informed report that would be helpful for the understanding of the process that you're asking about, Trustee House.
And if I may, through you, Chair, if I may just have a follow-up question. I'm just curious around the data that you're collecting, Trustee Alves, because we haven't done, the training for the teacher librarians hasn't unfolded as of yet. So I'm just wondering, perhaps we could have a conversation afterward, so I can detail some of those concerns.
Absolutely, yeah. and through you, Chairman, the response we're getting is that books are being removed at some schools, and you know, I think colleagues on the board have photos of some library shelves that are fairly bare, and the concern is, you know, if training hasn't even happened, I think that begs the question: why are some of these books being taken off the shelves?
So we can have that conversation. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Trustee Bailey.
Trustee Alves just asked the question that raised concern for me, because he just asked, if training hasn't occurred, why are so many of the shelves empty in the library?
Okay, we cannot hear you. I think you're muted.
I'm not muted.
Okay. All All right, Trustee Bailey, what we're gonna do, as I said, we're gonna ask staff through Director Saru to bring back an wholesome report on the process and procedure around the weeding of the library. And at that time, trustees can ask the various different questions that they may have around that process. Okay? All right, thank you. Thank you, Trustee Howe. Thank you, Trustee Bailey. Okay. All right, we are going to move on to item 14 on the agenda, which is staff report, and item 14A, Directive 5. And I'm going to I'm going to turn it over to Director Saru.
Through you, Chair Green, I will ask that General Counsel Catherine Lockyer please provide the final report on Directive 5.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Chair Green. It is with pleasure that I provide you with this report with the recommendation that it be forwarded to the Ministry to demonstrate the completion of Directive 5. As you are aware, Directive 5 provides in part that the Board shall retain on a temporary basis the services of an external parliamentarian governance expert to establish procedures and practices for effective, respectful, and transparent governance. Lori Barnes was retained as the temporary external parliamentarian governance expert. Ms. Barnes developed a governance directive and procedure bylaw and provided reports to the Board and to the Ministry on the progress. Ms. Barnes also provided an extensive list of recommendations to establish good governance practices and procedures. The recommendations related to the multi-year strategic plan, policy development and review, effective committee meeting structure, board bylaws and governance directives, and trustee access to information. Directive 5 also provided in part that the Board shall create a permanent position to carry out the responsibilities of the parliamentarian and to provide professional governance advisory services and support to the Board. That portion of the directive has been completed when I was hired in late November 2021. One of the mandates that I have is to address and implement the recommendations of the temporary parliamentarian governance expert. The report on the agenda this evening sets out the steps taken to not only fulfill the recommendations of Ms. Barnes, but to take further steps towards creating a regulatory compliant organization with a strong good governance foundation. All of the steps taken and actions completed, including the policies in place and programs developed, have been reported to Ms. Barnes. Good governance is not a moment in time, but rather an approach and an infrastructure that guides all of the work of both the staff and the Board of Trustees. The work done and the ongoing work addresses not only the letter of Directive 5, but also the intent and spirit of an organization founded in good governance practices. This is the work that will be ongoing and should be ongoing for the organization to be well managed and to be able to deliver on the vision, mission, and goals of the Board and the administration. While the work of good governance is never truly completed, the infrastructure now exists which establishes that strong foundation of ongoing good governance and provides the framework for continuous improvement and progress. With that infrastructure in place, Directive 5 is complete and can be reported to the Ministry as such. I'd be pleased to take any questions.
Okay. Trustee B. McDonald, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you through you, Chair. I appreciate the report. I want to thank staff for all the directives of putting the actual directive in the report. So I think it really frames what the report is focused on, and I want to thank you for that, and I appreciate it very much. I'll have a comment, and then I'll have a question just to follow more general about the directives. March 13th, 2020 is when the Peel report was released, and the many great directives to address anti-Black racism and other discriminations that go on in our Board was released, and they're meant to be a great blueprint. And as a trustee, we and I made a commitment to finish and complete these directives to make a better school board and school life for our students and staff. And today, 3 years later, now being back in the seat as trustee, I'm still fully committed to make them happen. And so, as part of the directives, as put out almost 3 years ago by the government, and this is my question, I don't know if it's through Chair, through you to the director, I may have not seen it. The new navigation of the website is a little more different. But do we have a summary of the directives that have not been finished? Now, this has been completed, so I'm really excited that's another one completed, and means we've made an achievement. Do we have a summary of the ones that have not been completed, and a date that when we expect them to be completed?
Director Sru.
Through you, Chair Green, and thank you, Trustee Brad McDonald, for that question. You're absolutely correct that since March 2020, when the directives were given to us, a lot of work has gone on. Some of the directives were like a one-step kind of a situation where an action was required or a hiring was required, but some of the directives are actually multi-layered, and the staff has been working very, very hard, not only to ensure that the directives are met. We always talk about going beyond the directives and integrating that work into the foundation of our strategic planning. So to your question, we do have some numbers, and it's our hope. We have met more than half. We have submitted to the ministry, and today you are going to, I think, about 3 more that will be submitted after this meeting. And it's my firm commitment that by June we would have submitted all the directives to the ministry.
Thank you. I appreciate knowing that deadline of June. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Al?
Sorry, so just for clarity on a follow-up for Trustee McDonald's point, through you, Chairman. So it is a list of what has been completed and what is remaining available online? That is correct? Okay.
Director.
Thank you, Trustee Alves, and through you, Chair Green. One thing is on the board website, Supervisor Rodriguez has provided a wholesome update on all the directives, so it can be seen, but we are very much in a position to provide you that information.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Director Sru. Any other questions? I am seeing none. I'm going to ask Trustee Alves and Trustee Davey, who this receipt for me, please. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And thank you to our governance officer. Great work. Continue to be done. Okay, we're going to move down to item 14B, which is Directive 8. And as Directive 8 speak to the Director of Education Performance Appraisal, I will be speaking to this item. And Directive 8 state that the board shall retain an external expert to assist the member of the board to conduct a robust, transparent appraisal of the performance of the Director of Education, including performing relating to addressing anti-Black racism, Islamophobia, and oppression areas of equity and board governance and human resource practice. The board shall include as part of the appraisal process a 360-degree assessment that include confidential feedback from senior administration, principal, teacher, student, trustees, representative of the board community. During 2021-22 school year, an external expert was retained to conduct an external 360-degree assessment of the Director of Education. The process allowed for robust and transparent evaluation to ensure the growth and success of the organization, in addition to the 360-degree assessment. The supervisor met regularly with the director to monitor progress and performance. The director of education successfully completed her first year in the role as demonstrated through the 360-degree assessment and assessment of the supervisor, as was reported at the September board meeting. The supervisor will continue with the evaluation of the director for 2022-2023 school year. The Director of Education is the most senior leader of the administrative side of the board. And as the Chief Executive Officer and Chief Education Officer, the Director is responsible for supporting the development of the board multi-year strategic plan and the implementation plan. The Director is also responsible for implementing all board policies and for managing all facets of the school board operation. The Director is working towards dismantling systematic oppression through a clear and transparent practice, an active engagement, and ongoing process of integration of policy procedures to ensure deep and sustainable change, to ensure that the delivery of equity education in service to all students. All staff of the board are reportedly directly or indirectly to the director. Given the key role, the success of the director reflects the success of the organization. The director should be evaluated based on a variety of criteria, using a variety of tools and method. To do this effectively, the practice of engaging an internal expert by the board to perform the appraisal of the Director of Education is recommended for the 2023-2024 school year, subsequently yearly. The independence of the external expert as well as the specialist evaluation skill of an expert will support the board member to conduct an effective, accurate, constructive appraisal. Having the best possible appraisal create a standard in a measure of overall good governance and leadership. Through the iron of an external third party to conduct the review, it will ensure that the diverse voice and progressive are amplified in the analysis of the director performance. It will serve to rebuild the trust of public confidence that was impacted as a result of previous concern related to good governance as identified in the ministry review. It is recommended that an external expert be retained to conduct the appraisal of the performance of the Director of Education on an annual basis starting in 2023-24 year. And I will ask if there's any question at this time. I'm looking around, I'm not seeing any. I'm gonna ask for a mover and seconder. Trustee Cameron, Trustee Pimenelli, okay? Thank you for that. And I will reiterate that the approval of the expert will retain to conduct the appraisal of the performance of the director on an annual basis started in 2023-24, and further that the report confirms that the success completion of the Director of Education appraisal during the year 2021-22 school year, and further that this report be affirmed that the former supervisor, Bruce Rodriguez, will complete the appraisal for the director for the school year 2022-23. And we have a mover and a seconder, and I'm gonna ask if there's any question, concern. I'm looking around, I'm looking online, I'm seeing none. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Oh, I saw somebody hand went up. Trustee McDonald, you have a question?
Excuse me, Chair. I'm raising my hand.
Yes. I'm asking if you have a question. Go ahead.
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
You mentioned in the report that since 2014, that there was a yearly appraisal of the director?
No,
is that correct? Or
no, not 2014. What the report is asking for, that we conduct a yearly appraisal of the director, and that we hire an external expert to help us do this. It's a 360-degree report, and it's asking that we hire external expert to ensure that this is carried out in a fair and equitable manner. And that it was done in 2021, 2022, and moving forward, it will be done in 2023, 24, and yearly after that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. And that was already moved and approved. So thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move to 14C, and that's Directive 10, and I'm going to turn over to Director Suru.
And through you, Chair Green, I will now ask Associate Director Camille Logan to present the report on Directive 10, the Equity Office Community Outreach Design Plan.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Chair Green. This report provides an update of Directive 10 and the ongoing work of establishing meaningful relationships with the community. It outlines the process to be employed in the design of the Community Outreach Plan and subsequent community consultations for gathering internal and external feedback. I will now call upon Lisa Hart, Superintendent of Education, Indigenous Education, School Engagement, and Community Relations, to provide an overview of the report.
Good evening. Thank you, Associate Director Logan, and through you, Chair Green. As identified in the report, the plan is designed to leverage the narratives, voices, and experiences of those in Peel's diverse communities as capital for the purpose of centering all members of our school communities, including students, families, and staff, as a necessary component of system transformation. The design of the Community Outreach Plan will begin with community consultations to identify community engagement priorities, preferred modes of consultation, the various ways the PDSB can make community engagement activities accessible to members of the diverse Peel community, and how to best assess the ongoing effectiveness of community engagement. Consultation questions will be co-constructed with the support of the Innovation and Research Department to ensure the questions are designed to capture the necessary feedback for the outreach plan development and measurable outcomes. Success of the Community Outreach Plan will demonstrate a commitment to consulting and responding to the diverse voices within the PDSB community. The finalized plan will leverage the narratives, voices, and experiences of those in Peel communities, particularly Black and Indigenous communities, as we work towards system transformation. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Do we have any question? I'm not seeing any. I'm going to ask Trustee Benjamin and Trustee Cole to move and second this report for me, please.
Yes, Chair, I do.
Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. I'm going to move to 14D, Directive 14, Affirming Muslim Identity and Dismantling Islamophobia's Tragedy. Director Suru.
Through you, Chair Green, I will ask Associate Director Camille Logan to present the report on Directive 14.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Chair Green. This report serves as a recommendation that the now finalized Affirming Muslim Student Identities and Dismantling Islamophobia strategy be approved. The passing of a motion in September of 2021 stated the board's commitment to a strategy designed to address Islamophobia in the PDSB schools and workplaces. The Peel District School Board Student Census indicated that Islam is the largest reported faith-based identity group within the board, with Muslim students making up approximately 25% of the population. The Directive 9 Equity Accountability Report Card, exploring the equity gap by faith, highlighted some of the experiences and realities of the Peel District School Board's self-identifying Muslim students that the strategy is designed to improve. I will now call upon Donna Ford, Superintendent of Education, to provide an overview of the report.
Thank you, Associate Director Logan, and through you, Chair Green. This report presents the Affirming Muslim Students and Dismantling Islamophobia strategy. This strategy is a community-led and PDSB staff-facilitated initiative. Some highlights of the strategy include that it describes the historical roots of Islamophobia, defines Islamophobia to emphasize that Islamophobia is a faith-based systemic oppression which can intersect with other social identities, intensifying its effect on students, their families, and staff. And it defines 5 guiding principles to clarify the manifestations of Islamophobia. This strategy is significant because it is the first such strategy tied to dismantling Islamophobia in education that has been co-developed by community partners and a school district in the province of Ontario. It is an opportunity for the Peel District School Board to engage in their stated commitments to the principles of anti-racism, anti-oppression, and anti-colonialism in ways that address discriminations experienced by Muslim identifying students, their families, and staff. And it supports the PDSBs in meeting its obligations under the Ontario Human Rights Code and to ensure the protected rights of the PDSB community. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Ford. Any questions, comments, or concerns from trustees? Okay, I am not seeing any. I'm going to ask Trustee Clark and Trustee Benjamin to move and second this report for me,
I
please.
move.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Director Sru and all their staff for great work being done. Okay, we're going to move down to 14E, Directive 7, Reforming the Guidance Program System, Update number 3, Director Sru.
Through you, Chair Green, I will now ask Associate Director Paul De Silva to present update number 3 on Directive 17.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Chair Green. I'll pass this over to Superintendent Superintendent of Education responsible for secondary and curriculum and instruction, Q Hoppy.
Thank you, Associate Director De Silva, and through you, Chair Green. This report provides an update on the progress of the reformation of the guidance program system. The hiring of the Black Excellence Guidance Resource Teacher position was completed in the fall of 2022. The individual hired to this position has begun sharing resources and supports to existing school guidance counselors to develop understanding and build capacity to better service Black students and families. The department has completed the course selection workshops for guidance counselors. These workshops provided counselors with the key and necessary information to be shared with students and families about the course selection process. It also ensured that there was consistent messaging around the opportunities available to all students through various pathway programs, including specialized programs such as regional learning choice programs. The board has completed board-wide presentations on the regional learning choice programs, also known as RLCPs, offered at the board, including specific presentations to Black families. A secondary RLCP presentation was held in November 2022, and 2 elementary presentations, one that took place in January 2023 and another upcoming presentation taking place on February 1st, 2023. These presentations were and will be provided to ensure that information about RLCPs and the process to access them was clearly communicated and opportunities to field questions were provided. The monitoring of Black counselors assigned to the guidance role at both the secondary and elementary panels continued. Specifically, principals once again provided all staff with an opportunity to indicate their staffing allocation preferences before beginning the staffing allocation process. Staff were able to choose to share if they self-identify as Black, African, and/or Afro-Caribbean, Indigenous, racialized, or from another underserved group as part of their teaching assignment preference form. In doing this, principals were able to give specific consideration to staff who identify as Black, African, and/or Afro-Caribbean, and in particular, Black, African, and/or Caribbean males, when making decisions about staffing guidance roles. As well, principals considered the demographic composition of their schools and how improved staff representation can be achieved in particular areas such as guidance. Development of the communication to families, informing them of scholarship and bursary opportunities that are posted on the public-facing portion of the board site continues. This ongoing work will also be communicated to school-based guidance counselors to ensure all students and families are aware of opportunities as they are received. The establishment of school-based Black Student Associations, BSAs, and Black Parent Associations, BPAs, that will become part of the future BSA and BPA networks continues. By the end of the 2022-23 school year, a complete listing of the BSA and BPA networks will be made available. A third-party review of the regional learning choice programs has been completed, and its recommendations are being reviewed with the specific aim of addressing and eliminating statistically significant disproportionalities in enrollment, achievement, and outcomes of Black, African, Afro-Caribbean, Indigenous, and other racialized students. Additionally, changes to locally developed and special education programs have also been initiated to begin to address and eliminate statistically significant disproportionalities in enrollment and achievement of the same aforementioned student populations. Guidance counselors have been informed of these changes and as part of their professional learning have been given direction and therefore responsible to and are accountable for informing families and providing the specific student populations of these opportunities accordingly. Thank you. This concludes my update on Directive 17 and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Trustee Alv.
Thank you, Chairman. Quick question. I'm not sure how directly related this is, but I was wondering if we could ask, through you, Chairman, through you, Director Sir, for a report on the current vacancies that we have for guidance counselors versus how many are filled. Like, do we have, how many are left open? Are they all filled?
I'm going to suggest that at this time you would have that question. Let me take that in my meeting with the director.
Perfect.
And then come back to trustees.
Thank you.
With an answer, okay?
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? I see one answer up. Whose hand is that one? No. Trustee Bailey, go ahead.
Yes. So when we use community organizations to get information out, like register for kindergarten. Why are we not using community organizations to get information out, like bursaries and regional programs for Black families? We need to get this information out to parents. So why are we not using our Black community organization to get this information out the same way?
So, Trustee Bailey, I can assure you that the board is using community organization to get that information out, because I have been part of some of those sessions where this information is delivered through community organizations. So it has been done.
Being one of the person that runs a community Black organization, I know that none of these are coming to me. So I can tell you, I'm not getting any of these.
Right, so we'll take that under advisement, and we will see. There's a number of community organizations that the board is presently engaged with and working with to get these information out in the community. but we will definitely take that under advisement. And maybe, can I suggest that maybe that's a discussion you can have with Superintendent Oppie about that, and can talk about how your group can get involved so that that information comes to your group, so that's also can distribute within the community that you serve. Okay? Any other questions?
Thank you.
I'm seeing none, so I'm gonna ask you, Trustee Bailey, to move that for me, and Trustee Hobb to second that for me. All those in favor? Carry. Thank you very much. So, I'm gonna move down to 14F, Directive 25. I'm gonna turn it over again to Director Sru.
Through you, Chair Green, I would be asking our Executive Officer of Human Resources, Masuma Kangura, to present the final report on Directive 25, the establishment of a centralized applicant tracking and file management system.
Thank you, and through you, Director Swaroop and Chair Green, I will present a final project update regarding the implementation of a tracking and file management system in accordance with Directive number 25 for submission to the Ministry of Education. As background, the intent behind this initiative is to create a system that will allow for preservation of all documents related to hiring, promotion, and temporary appointments. This will allow for a defined and clear audit trail that demonstrates a transparent, fair, and objective process. Contained within the review were references to inconsistencies in the application, filing, and applicant tracking systems across PDSB. The steering committee finalized its decision and selected Saba Talent Link as the centralized applicant tracking and file management system for the board. This solution meets the board's requirements as it relates to Ministry Directive number 25 by serving as a central repository and platform for all job postings, applicant tracking, and storage of job competition files. The project was scoped out and a statement of work was also developed with our vendor, Tier 1, the defined partner that manages Talent Link implementation. The statement of work was signed off in early August, and the project to implement the solution officially kicked off at that time. The project team is well underway with implementing and defining various processes in addition to integrating with Talent Link. A phased approach to transition various employee groups has been defined in the project implementation plan. Through the phases and through the transition of these different groups will commence towards the end of February 2023. The team is currently in the process of testing process configuration of these groups and planning for release. The plan is to complete the transition of all pending groups from Applied to Education to Saba Talent Link before the end of May 2023. Specific project timeline is also provided in the package for reference. A significant highlight of the project implementation team is to directly establish a partnership with the Ontario College of Teachers. The PDSB led this initiative and will be the first school board in the province to directly integrate data with OCT. As part of the scope of this project, the team is currently engaged in establishing integration with the skills assessment solution as well as external job sites like LinkedIn and Indeed for greater recruitment outreach and branding of PDSB. That concludes my report, and I thank you for your time.
Any questions or concerns, comments? I am not seeing any. I'm gonna ask Trustee Cameron and Trustee B. McDonald to move and second this for me. All right, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay. And we're gonna move to item 14.2, next report on graduation rate. Director Sewell.
And through you, Chair Green, I would be asking Associate Director Paul De Silva to present the graduate rates and non-graduates for 2023.
Thank you, Director Swaroop. And through you, Chair Green, I'd like to pass this to Dr. Lynn Hollingshead, our Research Manager in Innovation and Research, along with Coordinating Principal Sumbul Kakab.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Swarup and Associate Director De Silva, and through you, Chair Green. This evening, we would like to present to you the 2023 Peel District School Board Graduate Rates and Non-Graduates Report. This report covers 2 grade 9 cohorts for students who went to grade 9 in 2016-17 and in the following year, 2017-18. These students were working towards an Ontario Secondary School Diploma, also known as an OSSD. Students who left the PDSB prior to graduation to attend education in another jurisdiction were not included in this cohort.
In Ontario, graduation requirements include achieving 30 credits, completing the Ontario Secondary School Literacy Requirement, also known as the OSSLT, and completing 40 hours of community service. Due to the pandemic, the Ontario Literacy and the Community Involvement Hour requirements have been modified. For the years of graduation covered in this report, the Ontario Literacy requirement has been waived. For the year 2019-2020, the community involvement hours were also waived. In 2020 to 2021 and 2021 to 2022, the community involvement hours was reinstated at a lower minimum of 20 hours.
This report on graduation rates provides important data for measuring board initiatives that respond to the 2020 ministry directives and review. Overall, graduation rates at the PDSB continue to be high, with 91% of students graduating in 4 years for both cohorts, and for the 2017-18 cohort rising to 95% in 5 years compared to 94% for the previous 5 cohorts from 2012-13 to 2016-17. Of concern is a reduced rate of graduation for English language learners, down to 76% from 84% prior to the pandemic for the 4-year rate. This report provides disaggregated outcomes by racial background using the categories mandated by the Ontario Anti-Racism Data Standards. It also provides outcomes by diverse gender identity, sexual orientation, English language learner status, special education status, and the Social Vulnerability Index. For the first time, this report includes disaggregated outcomes for the non-graduates, leavers. The outcomes for English language learners, and particularly for students supported in the English Literacy Development Program, are disproportionately high, indicating that they are more likely to leave, or as described in the literature, pushed or pulled out of school prior to graduation.
One highlight in this report is that the disproportionate outcomes as leavers for African, Black, and Afro-Caribbean students has notably decreased for the 2017-18 cohort from 1.83 for 2016-2017 to 1.43 for 2017-2018. Future reports will determine if this is a function of system change or a result of the individuals in the 2017-2018 cohort. The Peel District School Board is committed to allocating student success resources for students, secondary schools to engage in re-engagement initiatives to discover additional information about school leavers, particularly those in an unknown destination, in order to develop strategies to reduce this cohort group. PDSB secondary students who left school before achieving an Ontario Secondary School Diploma account for 3 to 4% of each grade 9 cohort. We are committed to conducting the Count Me In Peel Student Census Survey in spring of 2023 to collect identity data for future reporting and to further understand school climate and its impact on student engagement. We will continue to explore the current allocation of ELL and ELD supports and determine where additional resources can be allocated. We also are expanding the ELL supports in our alternative programs and continue with support such as graduation coaches to support African, Black, and Afro-Caribbean students to further reduce the disproportionate outcomes. Thank you, and that concludes our report.
Thank you. Any question, concerns? I'm seeing One, and Trustee McDonald.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and through you. Thank you very much for the report. It's good to see our numbers going out, if I read correctly. Over the years, we've been making this progression to improve things, and your report looks at all categories of graduation rates, but it really doesn't highlight the reason for the, I guess, the 8%, if we use our graduation methodology from the ministry, or 6%, why they aren't achieving it, because there's many reasons. Not enough credits is obviously one, but also just getting your community hours is another. And I know over the years we've then put time in and focused on what can we do to get those group of students who are just hours away from graduating, not credits, hours. So I don't know who can best answer that question, but I just want to throw that out there and appreciate an answer. Thank you.
I can start by indicating, Trustee McDonald, that where students have not completed their community hours, school teams will go through great efforts to connect students to opportunities or provide opportunities themselves to have students achieve those hours. So secondary school administrators and guidance teams work with students weeks, if not months, sometimes a year in advance to achieve the completion of those community hours, and continue to support those students who haven't submitted their community hours, so that we're trying as much as possible to minimize the number of students who are not graduating as a result of not completing their community hours. Dr. Hollingshead, I don't know if you have anything to add about the data.
I wonder, for this report in particular, given that the reduced hours for these last two cohorts, perhaps that's not been an issue for this particular report.
Thank you very much for your follow-up. And I know, I only know my schools, what goes on from an administrative perspective to try to, just get those hours to graduate. But, this report doesn't highlight, why the 6 to 8% do not achieve the graduation. Is it just purely a credit accumulation and they didn't get it? And that's something, again, another focus on school on, watching that credit accumulation. And we have the pedagoggy around that in grade 9. If we start losing credits, it goes on. But also, it's a shame that a student doesn't graduate because of volunteer hours. This report doesn't, unless I didn't see it, doesn't highlight that. And where are these 6 to 8% falling out of the graduation opportunity? Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Cameron.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, thank you for the report. I'm always excited to see graduation rates, and in spite of our numbers looking better, as you said, 95% compared to the last 5 years at 94. Unfortunately, I look at this and say, and why can't we get to 96? Perhaps a little bit on the heels of Trustee McDonald's comment, because we know what it means. There isn't a person in this room or in this board or anyone listening to this right now who doesn't know the importance and value of completing, at the very least, a high school diploma, and what that means in terms of some of their opportunities beyond that. And so when our students don't get there, it is a shortfall in many ways for all of us to take a look at how can we help them get there. I would say this report reminds me of the reason I absolutely love Supervised Alternative Learning Committee, and why I love being having an opportunity to chair those committees, because it's all about one thing. It's helping every one of those students who are struggling in some way, who come before the committee, for us to help them. That's the only reason. I'm interested in belonging and being part of that committee. It's to help those students get that diploma, get the experience that isn't quite the same as everyone else has. But for 95%, we might feel good, but 96 would feel better, 97 even better. And so I'm hoping that we are looking at other ways to bridge that gap to get us closer to 100, respecting that that's a pretty challenging sight line to get there, but for a board this size. But thank you for the report. The question, sorry, Chair, through you, is it just me, or do I remember in the past us getting this report with individual school percentages assigned so we could see every single school in the board? Would that have been a historical practice that we're not seeing today?
Trustee Cameron, historically, what would have done prior to the report coming to the table would be that individual trustee would meet with their superintendent to go through that individual school, and then the report itself in general that come to the board. So that's how historically it has been done in the past.
Okay. I thought I remembered seeing individual numbers from individual schools, so I could look at Humberview and I could say, how are they doing relative to Meadowvale or Brampton Centennial, and are there gaps there for us to study? But I appreciate that, Chair. And with my amazing new superintendent in the gallery today, in Superintendent Al Vanal, I will work with Superintendent Al to have a look at those numbers for our superintendency. Thank you.
Any Trustee Jill Pomaly? Go ahead.
Thank you. Really appreciated hearing those improvements in the numbers also. So thank you so much to everyone who has worked so hard to help our students succeed through these years, because that's, I agree with Trustee Cameron. It would be great to see those numbers even higher, but a 1% increase with the number of students that we have, that is fantastic. So let's keep going in that direction. I did wonder, if we were intending to maintain the reduced number of community hours for students as part of graduation, or if we're going to go back to what the numbers were pre-pandemic.
I can answer that question. Those requirements are set by the Ministry of Education, and so we don't determine those requirements, and the ministry has reintroduced 40 hours as a requirement.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Comment. Yeah. Well, if it's down, that means she would have get her answer. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for this great report. It's always good to see good news report. But Director Sarul, I'm just going to ask from the chair that maybe next time the report come. Based on the ministry directives and what's been put in school, especially to support our Black students and our Indigenous students. I would like to see a report come at the next time, the difference between the graduation rate for these two particular group of students compared before the directives. If we could have that, it would be really greatly appreciated, because I think my colleagues would appreciate that too. And maybe the community also would appreciate to see, the change and what's been done to help those students so that we can see higher graduation rate within these two groups of students. Thank you. I'm gonna ask Trustee Cameron and Trustee B. McDonald to move and say, you have a comment? Okay, all right. To move and second this report for me. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Always love to hear good news story. Okay. We're going to move to item 14.3. And again, I'm going to pass it over to Director Sarul to...
And through you, Chair Green, I will ask Associate Director Jaspal Gill to present the first quarter financial reports as on November 30th.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Sapru, and through you, Chair Green. The report provides board's actual expenditures up to November 30th, 2022. The overall expenditure rate is in line with those of previous years at just under 23%. This is slightly below the benchmark of 25%. Although overall expenditures are trending below budget, there is variability in spending due to slow starts in certain programs and timing of expenditures. There are currently no concerns with the normal operating expenditures being within budget for the remainder of the year. The report also includes expenditures and the ministry grant allocations outside of the GSNs, the grants for student needs, as well as funding for federal and other third-party programs. Controller Latasha Charles and I are happy to respond to any questions.
Any question, any concern? I'm not seeing any here, I'm not seeing any online, so Trustee Davy, move them for me. Trustee Alf, second it? Yes, sir. Okay, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. All right, great. Thank you, Associate Director Gill, appreciate it. And we are gonna move down to 14.4, and that's the Director Annual Report. Director Saru.
Thank you, Trustee Green, and good evening, trustees, staff, and community members. The 2021-2022 Director's Annual Report celebrates the determination and accomplishments of students and staff in Peel District School Board and provides important progress updates on the work being done in the board to work towards creating an excellent public education system. Deepening and broadening the intersectional focus of our work, where all students can reach their full potential in an inclusive and equitable learning environment, is important given the rich diversity of Peel region. As is evident in the report, we listened, reevaluated, and aligned our collective efforts to ensure the implementation of the ministry directives and beyond, to eradicate all forms of systemic racism and oppression, especially anti-Black and anti-Indigenous racism. Accountability, relationships, student learning well-being, leadership and capacity building have been the foundation and focus of our work to ensure a clear alignment with school and board equity improvement planning. The work of the directives has never been seen as a checklist. Rather, they are our baseline actions towards sustainable and transformative change. Accountability is a key focus in our change process. We continue to examine our data, policies, and resources to ensure they are proactive, responsive, and grounded in anti-oppressive principles. Building relationships, especially with our students, families, and with each other, is crucial. The voices and agencies guide our decision-making. Understanding, hearing, and validating all learners, their identities and exceptionalities will continue to be paramount to student success and well-being. As we work to dismantle systemic inequities and discrimination, it is essential that we establish trusting relationships based on mutual respect and integrity between students, staff, trustees, and community. As the annual report exemplifies, student learning and well-being is at the core of our work. The deepest impact of our collective actions will be the changes that will impact student learning and schooling experiences. This is important as we need to ensure that students feel inspired, engaged, and have a greater sense of belonging. As director, I prioritized visiting schools and workplaces in 2021-2022 as it provided an opportunity to listen and learn from different perspectives to gain further understanding of how we can work together to better serve our students. Over the 2021-2022 year, I visited 136 of 259 schools and several workplaces, and I continue to make this a priority in this current year. Leadership and capacity building is also integral to our success. The annual report highlights how we have learned and led together. Peel District School Board senior leaders embraced going deeper into learning about anti-colonial, anti-racist, and anti-oppressive practices to develop critical consciousness. We also remained committed to the truth and reconciliation process and our calls to action. The progress we have made includes the significant advocacy and collaboration of families and communities. And I thank you all for your passion and commitment to helping us positively transform the board in ways that will benefit all students for generations to come. The potential that lies ahead for Peel District School Board is limitless and exciting. I look forward to continuing to work with the trustees, students, staff, and all of our partners on further advancement throughout the year that will be reflected in the next annual director's report. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Director Saru? Okay, I'm seeing none. So Trustee Davey and Trustee Jill Pumanelli is moving and seconding this report for me. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Director. It's always good to see that things are progressing in the right directions. This time we're going to move to item 15.1 on our agenda tonight. And this is a motion regarding Indigenous student trustee. The motion was received and in December, at our December meeting. This was moved by Trustee Cameron and seconded by Trustee Clark. Trustee Cameron, as the mover of this motion, would you like to speak to it?
I would. Thank you. And through you, Chair Green, may I say thank you to all of our trustees for this opportunity we have tonight together to vote on our first motion as a governance team. Thank you also to trustees who have shared with me their unconditional support for this motion. And thank you, Trustee Clark, for being the seconder for this motion. I will read the motion. Whereas the Education Act through Ontario Regulation 7/07, Student Trustees, specifies that a board shall have 2 but not more than 3 student trustees. And whereas the Education Act through Ontario Regulation 462/97, First Nations representation on boards, supports and provides for the appointments of Indigenous representation in its board membership. And whereas the Peel District School Board is dedicated to Indigenous educational sovereignty and reconciliation and recognizes the importance of representation, therefore be it resolved that the Peel District School Board student trustees policy be amended to update the number of student trustees from 2 to 3 to include 1 self-identifying Indigenous student Indigenous student to be elected by students who voluntarily self-identify as First Nations, Métis, or Inuit. And further, that staff, in consultation with Indigenous communities, draft an update to the Peel District School Board student trustee policy and procedure to establish a process by which an Indigenous student trustee may be elected to the board to be presented by way of a report to a future meeting of the Governance and Policy Committee. And further, that upon recommendation for approval by the Governance and Policy Committee, the updated student trustee policy and procedure be presented to the Peel District School Board of Trustees at a future board meeting for approval. And further, that an approved Peel District School Board student trustee policy and procedure be in place prior to the 2024 student trustee elections to allow for the inclusion of an Indigenous student trustee commencing with the 2024-2025 school year. Respectfully, I am obviously hoping for a 100% vote in favor of this motion. With the 2 regulations from the Education Act cited in this motion, we can see that this motion is supported through the Act. I see it as my personal and professional responsibility to support it too. How many other Ontario school boards have a 3rd student trustee, and how many of those boards have a third student trustee designated in support of their Indigenous students? We'll hear some of those answers from our student trustees, Athwal and Lee. The Peel District School Board is the second largest school board in Canada. While some other large GTA school boards like the TDSB and York Region District School Board have an Indigenous student on their board of trustees, that isn't the reason we should do this. We should support this because it's the right thing for us to do. For our students, it is supported by the Education Act. It is needed to support our Indigenous students and community partners. We can be part of an important change at this table by passing this motion tonight. This motion doesn't need to be deferred to another time or referred to another place. You can see from the motion's wording that once this is approved by the board, the student trustees policy will need to be amended and updated. The motion recognizes that a report by staff will go to the Governance and Policy Committee. Once the Governance and Policy Committee approves the wording and procedure, then the updated student trustee policy procedure will be presented to this board at a future meeting for approval. You can see how this process will involve consultation with our Indigenous communities. I know that students Athwal and Lee and I were disappointed to learn that this motion, upon approval, will need to wait until the 2024-2025 school year for it to be put in place. However, governance staff have explained how time is needed to seek input and approval with our Indigenous communities and the Governance and Policy Committee. We understand the need for this time. Regulation 7/07 Student Trustees of the Ontario Education Act says, under honorarium, section 9(1)A, the amount of the honorarium referred to in subsection 55(8) of the Act is $2,500 for each complete year that the student holds office. From another school board's website, I quote, "The Ministry of Education provides funds and support to Ontario school boards with the goal of improving the learning environment and educational outcomes for Indigenous students." Cost is clearly not a factor here. Cost is clearly not a prohibitive factor here. In the Peel District School Board, we have close to 700 students who have self-identified as Indigenous. I understand that there are likely many more students who don't self-identify for a variety of reasons. Prior to our September 28, 22 board meeting, I received a welcome call from Superintendent Hart informing me about the upcoming report to board, which would outline the recommendation that Caledon's former Credit View Public School be converted to a new Centre for Indigenous Excellence and Land-Based Learning. I was 100% in support of this recommendation. It was the right thing to do. On November 22nd, 22, I was pleased to attend, along with 4 other trustees, the official launch of that new site and programs. It was an amazing celebration. That was a wonderful beginning. In 2015, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada made 94 calls to action. Number 63 says, "We call upon the Council of Ministers of Education, Canada, to maintain an annual commitment to Aboriginal educational issues, including Part 3, building student capacity for intercultural understanding, empathy, and mutual respect." We will give all of our Indigenous students a voice at this table with this motion. I hope that you will join me in giving this our 100% support. Chair, in the event of opposition to this motion, I am requesting a recorded vote. And with respect, I offer this motion to the board through you. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cameron. Just going to ask if there's any discussion or debate, but before I do that, I just want to let Trustee know that if you are going to offer a comment or any suggestions or discussions, please understand that when you're speaking, speak once. You're not able to go back and forth. We'll not have a debate. Okay, so when you speak, whatever you have to say, you do it once. Thank you. So, any question, any concerns? Okay. All right, so we do have a hand up. Trustee Clark.
Yes, I just wanted to speak in support of this motion. Right. It's an opportunity for us to show our support for our Indigenous siblings It is, it's a suggestion from the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. It offers a way to understand the similarities and differences between the methodologies by which Indigenous people and the global standard methodology of governance work. Yes, I hope everybody will support this. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to go to our student trustee.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, may Trustee Athol and I share 5 minutes of our support for the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Both Avneet and I are in support of this motion. The addition of a third Indigenous student trustee, in addition to serving regular student trustee duties, would support Indigenous education, representation, and reconciliation. They would carry 2 voices, both the student voice and the Indigenous student voice. An Indigenous student voice is important for numerous reasons. To begin, it ensures the inclusion that the perspectives and needs of Indigenous students are represented and taken into account in the decision-making process. An Indigenous student trustee who lives and understands the needs of Indigenous students is able to provide unique insight into systemic barriers, lived experiences, and a stronger understanding of external barriers such as inequities within and outside the system. Trustee Atwell's and I's ability to advocate for unique perspectives of an Indigenous person is limited compared to an Indigenous student trustee. This insight can lead to more equitable and inclusive policies and practices for Indigenous students. Furthermore, the representation of having an Indigenous student trustee in itself is extremely powerful. An Indigenous student at the table will serve as a role model and inspiration for other Indigenous students, further establishing a sense of community and belonging among Indigenous students. The representation in a board role will empower self-representation for Indigenous people with the ability to foster more participation from Indigenous communities as well. Additionally, having an Indigenous student trustee can also contribute to the broader goal of reconciliation and addressing the historic and ongoing injustices experienced by Indigenous peoples. Peel has recently opened the Center for Indigenous Excellence in Land-Based Learning. This opening was a major milestone and a demonstration of Peel's commitment to reconciliation. An Indigenous student trustee would be able to better draw attention and highlight the work being done today and how this impacts the board and students we serve. Not only does this provide an opportunity to raise levels of truth and reconciliation awareness, but this would also help Indigenous students, parents, and community members be heard and reflected in the creation of policies and projects. The previously above mentioned points are all supported by OSPBA. I'll now pass it on to Trustee Athwell to continue with some words.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. All right, carrying on. Coming back to what San had said previously, in the Education Act of the Ontario Regulation, it states that the board shall have at least 2, but no more than 3 student trustees. Currently, 9 public school boards in Ontario have 3 student trustees. 6 of those 9 have the 3rd student trustee as an Indigenous school board. Our neighboring school boards, Toronto and York, both have an Indigenous student trustee as well. The following boards have 3 student trustees, not including an Indigenous one: SCDSB, DDSB, and HCDSB. The boards that do have an Indigenous trustee are as followed: TDSB, DSBN, RDSB, LDSB, TVDSB, YRDSB. I reached out to a fellow peer of mine. Her name is Kaya Rose. She's a DSBN's Indigenous student trustee. I asked Kaya to tell me more about how her position as an Indigenous student trustee has helped her raise more awareness about reconciliation and how important it is to have such a position at her board. As Kaya said, Indigenous student trustees carry a unique position and responsibilities to contribute to reconciliation. There's this one really powerful quote from Senator Murray Sinclair, the former chairman of Truth and Reconciliation Commission, that goes, "Education got us into this mess, and education will get us out," in reference to residential schools. I think it is important to recognize the loss of culture and tradition and to acknowledge as a result of the residential schools. Public schools are fundamental in properly educating communities and students on crucial aspects of Canada's past and how disproportionately affects Indigenous populations today. Our education system has the potential to contribute to meaningful reconciliation, rebuild relationships, and strengthen cultural identity. I've not passed any specific motions as most of my work has been operational. However, I've been working with our DSBN Indigenous education team on how to promote community resources at local Indigenous organizations. We've helped so many communities in partnerships with the Native Friendship Centers, invited students to attend Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Programs, OYAP, conferences, and more. Additionally, we are currently establishing an Indigenous Student Leadership Circle, which will function similarly as Student Senate, offering a space for student trustees to provide insight on where we are lacking in the board and how we can grow. My position as Indigenous Student Trustee and the chair of this committee will amplify their concerns to the board of the trustees and take action. She also had linked to the OBSBA's Student Trustee Handbook. They have a page on Indigenous Student Trustees on page 18 and 19 that previously Trustee Lee talked about. The reason why I asked Kyle for her input for this month is to show how important it is to have an Indigenous Student Trustee as a part of the Peel board. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that information. You guys always bring great information to us, so really appreciate that insight. I'm going to go to Trustee Benjamin.
Through you, Chair, this is my response to the motion by Trustee Stan Cameron, and I thank him for bringing this motion, and thanks to all the earlier speakers who have expressed their views. By appointing a third student trustee to represent the Indigenous community, the Peel District School Board acknowledges the inherent right of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit students to have opportunities of leadership and to have pathways to success. Through this, the Peel District School Board will be taking a step in the right direction. Further, by successfully voting for this motion, the Board of Trustees and the Peel District School Board will encourage more students who self-identify as Indigenous to make full use of the opportunities that the Peel District School Board provides them, to be proud of their heritage and to celebrate it within the Peel District School Board. I support Trustee Cameron's motion and look forward to the election of an Indigenous student trustee from the 2024-2025 school year onwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Benjamin. Trustee Johal.
Yes, first I have to make sure if everybody can hear me, because I have some technical issues today. Can everyone hear me?
We're hearing you clearly.
Very good. Thank you so much, Chair. So through your chair, thank you so much. I thank Trustee Cameron for presenting his motion to add a student trustee on the board. I think by adopting this motion, PDSB will be opening a door for empowerment of Indigenous community. And at the same time, because I support his motion without hesitation and without any further discussion, I have just a question. I was looking at the student trustees policy of our board that is in place since 1998. And when I was looking point number 1, it says that 2 student trustees will be elected to represent the interests of all students. I was just wondering on what basis it was decided at that time to have only 2 student trustees. Was there a specific reason for that?
Trustee Johal, I don't think any one of us that are at the table right now was around that time. So that question, I cannot answer it for you. We can maybe just assume that it was the time of the day, and but one of the things that we recognize as the board, and it's a learning for us, especially through the ministry directives, is that we have to review our policies more frequently so that we are ensuring that whatever we do is relevant to today learning. So as we move forward as a board and as the staff, we're going to make sure that this is something that we not only talk about, but something that we put in practice to ensure that we are reviewing policies and to make sure that the policies are relevant to today learning for all students. I hope that helped you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I am not seeing any other hands at this time. So I'm gonna call, Trustee Bailey. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so this is an excellent way to support the Truth and Reconciliation commitment, reminding Indigenous students that they do belong, and this gives Indigenous students a voice. This motion will strengthen the commitment that all children have a place, a right, and a voice in the Peel District School Board. I fully support Trustee Cameron's motion.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I am seeing none. At this time, I'm going to call the vote, and I'm going to do the vote in alphabetical order so that we can maintain records. If you're in favor of the vote, you can say yay, or yes, or in favor, or if you're not in favor, you can say oppose. I will start with Trustee Alf.
Yay, yes, in favor without any reservation.
Okay. Trustee Bailey.
I've already said I'm in favor.
Trustee Benjamin.
100% in favor, Chair.
Trustee Cameron.
In favor, Chair.
Trustee Clark.
Yay, miigwech, nyawe, walaliak. I fully support this measure. Thank you.
Trustee Cole.
Yes, thank you.
Trustee Davy.
In full support, Mr. Chair.
And I am in support. Trustee Jahal.
Yay, yes, full support.
Trustee B. McDonald.
Here, yes, thank you very much. I'm in full favor for this motion.
Trustee K. McDonald.
Yes, I'm in full support.
Trustee Pomoli.
Yes, in favor, and very proud to support this.
The motion is passed unanimously, so congratulations. No. Okay. So I want to thank Trustee Cameron for bringing this motion. Thank you, Trustee Clark, for second this motion, and thank you to all the trustees and to our student trustees who have spoken so eloquently tonight in support of this motion. Thank you very much, and we look forward that in 2024 we will have a Indigenous trustee at the table that will open the door for other great work to happen and support in truth and reconciliation. So thank you all.
Through you, Chair, thank you to everyone.
Okay. Okay, I have no trustee motion tonight. I'm going to move down to item 17, which is the adoption of the closed session report. So that had to do with staff appointment, vice principal and principal assignment, and QP Local 16 tentative agreement. I'm going to ask Trustee Johal to move this for me and Trustee K. McDonald to second it for me. Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that takes us to the end of our meeting tonight. Thank you all for those of us who came out. Before I call adjournment, I just want to wish you safe travel home tonight and be safe on the road. Trustee Cameron is moving adjournment. Trustee Davy is seconded. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Have a good night.